they're used to being productive, getting things done, having like 10 different tasks. So whenever they start to relax, they feel guilty. And this is also why people don't change. Like, we are built to stay consistent and argue against anyone who challenges that. You're gonna have the right speech, the right coaches, the right structure, the right script, the right everything, even prime yourself up for it. But the moment you step on that stage, you're gonna froze. Elite performers, they don't try to avoid the gap, it's inevitable. They are simply building the tools and capacity to get out of it as fast as possible. Many people get scared and they fall back into the overwhelm, and then they play this game of vicious cycle of going between arousal, overwhelm. The third step is about expanding our capacity, but we have to do the right sequence, because if we try to expand our capacity without feeling safe, Alright guys, so welcome to part number 3 of this foundational model masterclass on mindset. Now, mindset is a super important skill that we need to master, and it's not one solution fits all case, right? It's layered. There are many nuances to that, and that's why we are talking about this step by step to build layer to rewire your own thinking, your own beliefs, your own synapses about what you believe to be true around mindset. You know, a lot of the advice out there is super generic. It's like think positively, or like work hard, or like set your mindset up for success, but it really means nothing, right? When it's so vague, it means nothing because it's not applicable to your specific situation. So something I want to talk about today in this third part is especially around how long we stay in a certain state and what we can do to accelerate our own growth, our own grief, for example, and how quickly we can move on from things instead of having to remind ourselves about something that happened. The day of recording this is actually a challenging day for myself. So I'm dealing with death today, and I'm noticing in myself that all of these skills are really applicable in those times when there are unexpected events, there are intense emotions, there are instinctual nervous system responses which can put you in high anxiety or even in overwhelm if it's too much. And that's why learning how we can get out of these states as fast as possible becomes a crucial master skill, because whether you want or not to accept this, life ultimately is unknown and things will happen which just throw us off the balance. And then it's also our own mindset and how we frame those situations. Is this happening as a life being evil, or is this happening in some form to teach us something, a lesson, potentially a silver lining to the whole experience? So that in big part depends on the mindset that we have and the skills and the right sequence that we can apply to utilize them. So that's why, without further ado, I want to talk about peaks and valleys. Peaks and valleys happen for you, right? Peaks and valleys is this concept that in life we go through ups and downs. It's inevitable, right? We will fall into the gap just like we can go into the peak of the gain. And that's how life operates, right? The valley visits or the lows are inevitable, but how long you stay in the valley does depend on you. And something which is a really interesting concept to understand is emotional refractory period. So this is something that psychologist by the name of Paul Ekman discovered, that when we get triggered, we enter this emotional refractory period. And what it means is that our state cannot process new information that doesn't match our current emotional reality. So basically, during this moment of being triggered, we are filtering out anything that doesn't match our emotional state, right? So any information which says otherwise, any beliefs or perceptions or opportunities which could potentially be a peak, get filtered out because emotionally we are in the valley. Now, why is this important to understand? Like, from one side, it's important to understand this idea because we can have the best strategies, the best tools, the best goals, the best clarity, but if subconsciously at nervous system level we are in the gap, in the valley, in this emotional refractory period, then no matter what we're trying to do with conscious thoughts, conscious level, conscious actions, it's almost like they're going into the different directions. And this is why it's important to understand that the valleys are inevitable, but your duration is choice, how long you stay there, right? And this applies for something on a lower scale, which is something like your day started poorly because you spilled coffee on your laptop. Or it can be about something that you've been stuck in this state for 2 years because the stress response didn't manage to respond. Now, we'll go into a bit more detail around this, but what you need to understand is that when we are working with the nervous system, even with the mindset, the goal isn't perfection, right? It's not perfection, but it's more about awareness and your ability to recover, right? Elite performers that don't try to avoid the gap, it's inevitable. They are simply building the tools and capacity to get out of it as fast as possible and learn the lessons that it taught it. So how long you stay in a valley, how long you stay in a gap, depends on a few things. So first and foremost, it's how quickly you can reframe the situation, right? Can you give it a new perspective? Can you give it a new meaning? Can you see how the situation somehow is happening for you, not against you? Secondly, awareness development, right? It's the ability to notice and tune into your emotional state before it hijacks you. It's being able to sense what's happening in your body. Am I grounded? Am I in my head? Do I know where my own boundaries are? Like, what kind of energy do I feel in my own body? And then lastly, of course, it's about nervous system capacity, because the larger your container, your nervous system capacity, the more you can hold and the more safe you will feel in the process. So being in the gap inevitably will extend this refractory period. So give you one more example of what is refractory period. Let's say there is an experience at your work when a colleague, I don't know, does something to upset you. Now, you can stay in this upset state for a minute, an hour, a month, even a year. And what is happening is that the longer you stay in this emotional state, the more you start to filter every single action of your colleague from this emotional state. So it doesn't matter what they do, you'll be filtering based on your own implicit biases on how this person, quote unquote, made you feel. Now, this is also why people who suffer trauma are unable to see a way out of it. They are in their own emotional refractory period. And because they're in this state, because they haven't processed the energy underlying this state, they literally cannot move on. So this is how it works. Something triggers you. You go into anxious state. And if you're unable to complete this anxious stress response, what it means to complete, it means to discharge the energy. Yeah, it means to complete it. It means that it doesn't get stuck in your nervous system and not like imploding in yourself, but rather you're processing that through some kind of a movement. If you don't do it, you will fall into the overwhelm. And overwhelm is like a freeze state. It's a shutdown. So the energy literally gets frozen, but it doesn't go anywhere. It simply sits there, right? And because it's frozen, every time something similar happens, it triggers that, it triggers that, it triggers that, it triggers that. And you feel so overwhelmed that you're unable to move on. So now you're trying to avoid those situations, which starts to limit your life, your opportunities, your choices. The inevitability of this is that the same energy that it entered, has to come out. So that's why you see these cases where people who've been in these overwhelmed and frozen states, the moment they start to work with themselves, be it through breath work, therapy, some type of a movement, they actually begin to feel worse at first. But it's not that they feel worse, it's just that they are going back one more step and they're moving from overwhelm to anxiety, to restlessness, to this highly activated arousal state in which they were before they collapsed. It's actually progress because now you're moving back into it and you have the ability to process that response and then move on. But many people get scared and they fall back into the overwhelm, and then they play this game of vicious cycle of going between arousal, overwhelm. Maybe you experience it as well. And if this is the case, there's something that we can do about it, right? And I just want to talk a little bit about how being in a gap inevitably will extend this period for you. Because when we are in the gap, when we see, all the things which we haven't done or measuring ourselves against some sort of ideal are perception will narrow, right? We will only see information which confirms the threat, the danger, whatever it is that we couldn't process. Then everything else is literally filtered out at neurological level. Because for your nervous system, the key goal, and perhaps the only goal, is to survive. It doesn't care what you will do tomorrow. It doesn't care your long-term prospects. It doesn't care how you will feel about your decisions. It only cares about keeping you alive. So in order to achieve that, sometimes it's going to put you in a freeze state. Don't act. That's survival mechanism. And this is why I'm saying that it's going to filter out everything else, which contradicts your neurological state. So if deeply, subconsciously, at nervous system level, you believe that you're in danger when you're supposed to go speak on a public stage, you're going to have the right speech, the right coaches, the right structure, the right script, the right everything, even prime yourself up for it. But the moment you step on that stage, you're going to froze. Why? Because you haven't processed the stress response, so the energy that's still there is that of overwhelm. Now, new learning is impossible because in this state, we are locked in survival mode, right? All the resources which we have, they are sent to keep us alive. It doesn't care about taking in new information. Like, that's not the priority. We are literally surviving the moment, surviving the day, and we live to fight another day. So as you can see, it's not really an effective state to be in. And like you can already imply, that trauma and beliefs filter out any contradictory information, right? And this is also why people don't change. Like, we are built to stay consistent and argue against anyone who challenges that, right? That's why we're saying we're ready to die on our own sword, because this is it. We are built this way. Anything that goes, and like, listen to this, this is really interesting. Anything which goes against our default known is seen as a threat. And for many people nowadays, even relaxation is seen as a threat because they're not used to it. They're used to being productive, getting things done, having like 10 different tasks. So whenever they start to relax, they feel guilty. Why do they feel guilty? Because it's like something unknown. I should be doing this. I should be taking care of my tasks. I should be spending time with my kids. Instead, I'm just like, what, sitting in the sun and sunbathing? No, that feels wrong. I feel guilty about doing that. And you see, now we have completely shifted the concept all the way around, and we feel that relaxation is something dangerous, because what if I relax and, something bad happens? It's all, like, I don't want to say it's all just mindset, because it's also nervous system and also your beliefs. But we can start to grasp and see ourselves where we are doing something similar by noticing those behaviors and patterns in ourselves. And I'm going to give you an example so that it lands more deeply. So, for example, there could be a case when someone is feeling that it's unsafe to be authentic, right? So originally, maybe this person experienced some sort of a school trauma, right? Maybe teacher laughed at you when you shared opinion in a class. Now, subconsciously, a belief formed around that, which says that when you are speaking authentically, that's dangerous, right? So the two go together because emotion plus memory, it creates a long-term memory. Now, the refractory period gets extended because that in that moment you didn't have the capacity, you didn't have the skills, you didn't have the support and safety to be able to process this highly aroused state, so you shut down and you kept it in your nervous system. So now any situation which involves self-expression triggers this threat response, right? Anxiety, hesitation, avoidance, sweating, the mouth goes dry, your pupils dilate, right? You're feeling like you're about to lose control. And then what is happening at the same time is that information gets filtered out. So you literally cannot perceive any other reality. So people tell you, hey, look, but like, it doesn't matter. You can go on a stage and say nothing and it's going to be fine. For you, it's still dangerous. Why? Because you're filtering out any other choice, because the last time you were in similar emotional state, it felt dangerous to your life. And this is why amygdala begins to run the show. Your prefrontal cortex gets turned off, so there's no logical thinking involved, and only threat confirming information gets processed, right? So anything suggesting safety is filtered out, and this is literally how subconscious narrows our perception. So if we pause here for a second and think, okay, what are the steps for me to move out of this? First and foremost, it's about getting safety. If we are not safe, we're not going to do it, right? Okay, we might push ourselves to do it once or twice with adrenaline, with caffeine, hyping ourselves up, but in the long term, we won't do it because we don't feel safe. Safety is the first component. Then second part is support. Okay, safety and support. So we need to have support, be it from other people, be it from the environment, be it from our own self-talk, but we need the support to be able to do it. And then the third step is about expanding our capacity, but we have to do the right sequence, because if we try to expand our capacity without feeling safe, it also won't work. So safety is key number one, and you cannot logic someone out of a trauma, out of a belief, or a conditioned refractory period, right? It's just impossible. It's not the way we are built. It's not how our nervous system is wired. And that's why I want to give you some steps which you can do to start regulate your nervous system. And that will help you as well with your mental reframing. So first and foremost, you have to acknowledge the nervous system reality, right? Consciously, you might want to say, I'm further ahead of this. Like, I actually don't feel threatened by these things. But if you are not consistently doing those things with enjoyment, then chances are that at nervous system level, you're still afraid. And that's okay. That's okay, right? Because otherwise your brain will just continue to filter out any contradictory information, opportunities, and you will sabotage yourself. You will delay, you will hesitate, you will try to be perfect. All of these are coping mechanisms to keep you alive. So first and foremost, become aware of what is your starting position, then work at the nervous system level first, right? And this is what we did in module number 1. Unless we work at nervous system level first, we won't have the safety to be able to move on to the next stages. Once we work at the nervous system level, we have the safety and we have the support, being able to talk with someone about this, having a community which is like-minded, maybe just listening to different podcasts which talk about these concepts and which help you also like resonate with what you are going through, right? Because sometimes you feel, okay, maybe I'm lost. I don't know if what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, what I'm perceiving is actually okay. And just hearing someone talk in a podcast about what that process looks like and be like, it allow you to release the pressure you hold on yourself, because, okay, so this is normal. I'm going through a process. I'm stretching my nervous system and it's supposed to feel heavy. Yes, sometimes I'm gonna fall in the gap, but each time I'm calibrating more and more and more what is my window of tolerance, so I'm better able to perform in the long term. So just hearing that can be like, got it. So it's not supposed to be forever. I'm just calibrating myself. And then gradually expand your perceptual window through safety building experiences, right? So this can be conscious breathing. These can be somatic grounding experiences, feeling the ground beneath you, feeling the energy in your body, feeling like just your body parts touching the ground. It's fundamentally the biggest issue, the biggest, same way the biggest lever I see for high performing people is to come from here and move into the body, right? Because we are super like developed mentally, but at body level, at nervous system level, we're lagging behind. So it's like we're in two different levels and it's not working. So we need to get our body in the same level as our brain. And the way we do it is we come into our body, we feel safe to feel, we feel safe to hold different emotions. And we just learn how to regulate, how to listen to our body, how to access gut, feeling, intuition, creativity, stuff like that. And then, and only then, when we know how that works, we use somatic approaches that bypass this filtering system, like something like transformative breathwork, which is a high charge experience, which allows us to take a lot, which allows us to transform a lot. But fundamentally, we need to go through these stages before, otherwise we might collapse. So this is what I wanted to share with you in this part. It's more information based, but I wanted to give you the understanding of these different aspects, and maybe you'll start seeing why you haven't been able to move forward consistently, because you're trying to work from a level that's higher, but fundamentally we have to work from bottom up, right? Nervous system, emotions, beliefs, behaviors. That's the sequence. And if you're not where you want to be in life, just go deeper, deeper, deeper. Fundamentally, you'll find where is it that you don't have coherence. And then when you find that, work with building safety, get the right support, and then slowly expand your capacity through different experiences. Take care, and I'm going to see you in the next part.